to dance while the north sleeps on the floor. Howling for blood, we bathe in the flood of sunlight on the water. But take good care of your lovers and friends, disciples of California.
Well, hello, vinyl community. Back in this familiar position that you've seen before. Me sitting in front of a bunch of records, rambling on, talking about various stories and ideas, and the newest records that I've been absorbing, as we like to say. These have been with me for a few months now, as has been the case. There's many more to come after this. It's been a good year. It's been a really good year. You know, for records, really been happy with what I've been finding, and I'm only 5 days away now from the 2024 WFMU extravaganza, which should be fun. Looking forward to meeting folks and doing the thing. But been very busy here as I've been posting. My band's been busy recording, and it's Halloween season, which is big in this house. A lot of making going on, and yeah, Halloween will be out in full force, and then Friday morning, ass crack of dawn, rolling out with Brandon down to New York. But I do have a vinyl absorption I've been working on for a bunch of days now, weeks really, when you think about it. So let's get into it. I want to sort of start in a few places. I just want to sort of publicly admit, or just mention, that I got these two records thanks to Alex. He was able to procure these for me through Sound Ohm. I really love these. The Robert Donini, Tuneless and Fluxmar. These are late 80s, early 90s original dead stock copies that Sound Ohm has access to or got. And they had limited sets available. And Alex, being a Sound Ohm subscriber, was able to pop for one, but they kind of have been slowly allowing copies to sort of leak in, so it'll show sold out and then they'll bring a few more in. I think they're just trying not to kill the secondhand market, but I really love these. I've been happy to get them. I've just been starting to play them, so I'm not going to really talk about these too much, but I wanted to thank Alex for getting these to me, and Stunty for illuminating at least me on the existence of these, because he played them in his stream. They're all like hand-colored records. Really interesting stuff. So I'll talk more about these in another time, but I just wanted to mention that. And Alex also sent me some VCLT, which I've been through some of it, but I'll get to that another time. So thank you, Alex. Always a mensch. So we're listening to Tokatlian. This will be my first record in this vinyl absorption. What a beautiful, this is a 1975 Argentinian original press, an Argentinian release on the Cabal label. I'd show you the label, but it's playing right now. It does come with this nice booklet, which is quite lovely. Really great art and lyric book. It's sort of a spiritual jazz record. At least it doesn't get too out there. There's a few moments where it's free, but it's mainly this sort of serene, sort of drifting, sort of a really great Sunday morning record, which is when I'm recording this. James Buttery also sort of talked about this at one point, saying that he was not quite 100% into it, but he liked it. Maybe he was expecting a little more. But it's a beautiful listen. He was the Tokatlian was a founding member of the Arco Iris, prog psych group out of Argentina, which I've just gotten into and just checked out a little bit. But yeah, a lot of this sort of floaty saxophone happening, with a bit of a free inspirational spirit that comes a little bit later on. It also features Villegas, Enrique Villegas, who is a pianist, as you can hear in the background, playing Nice, beautiful, sort of supportive, like, yeah, arpeggiated sounds there. There is a reissue of this, if you're interested as well. This wasn't entirely that expensive. I was able to get it in the US. So that makes me happy. That makes me sing. So that's what we have listening, and my first selection here in this vinyl absorption. All right, these next two, I went back into the well. I went back into the hellscape known as Outrantoiture. Not hellscape, but the deep well of records. After I left Montreal, I did order 2 records online that were really good prices, and I just decided to pop for them. I just felt like it, because I wanted to get them there, but I felt like I'd already blown my wad for sure. And this one is awesome, and I'm going to be looking into, he's an artist that I've known, again, sampled, checked out. I've been listening to some of the most recent archival release, and I played a track on my last one to start the video. Anthony Moore, Pieces from the Cloudland Ballroom. This is the first Japanese press, which came out much later. This is originally from like 1972. So this is the Japanese press from about 10 years later. It's the first one. And yeah, Outrantoiture had a nice copy of this. It's beautiful shape. It's on Polydor, which is the original UK pressing. Anthony Moore, known for sort of being a Faust associate, recorded at in their studio in, what was it, Ume. Here's the original Japanese pressing label there. But he was also a part of Slap Happy, which was like with Dagmar Krauss, a German sort of art rock. I wouldn't call it quite krautrock. It's sort of adjacent to that. But very much Anthony Moore, very much a part of that whole sort of scene. And this is just a beautiful, mind-bending to me cosmic record. The first side is just called Tim Tum Tum, and it's really just a vocal piece, which I like. I like vocal pieces, sort of a vocal drone. But then the second side has just some absolutely stunning use of, God, what is it? Strings and organ. The first track in particular, Munahui, I can't even see it, and then ABCD Goldfish. Those 2 tracks on the second side are what really make this record. It's a bit of a soundscape drone, and I like the vocal chant side one, but it's the second side is what really brings it home for me. There's a lot more to explore with Anthony Moore, so I that is going to be an artist I'll be looking towards, but yeah, there is just a most recent Drag City archival release called Home of the Demo. So, yeah, like I told you, I did check that out briefly, but I got to look at it some more. But this one was recorded with Ulf Kenkels, Glenn Davenport, and Gieske. And then you also do have Zappy Dietermeyer of Faust, who played hi-hat. But yeah, recorded at WOM, October 1971, and produced by Uwe Nettelbach, of course. Absolutely great. And another great one from Outrantoiture. So the other one I got of the 2 was this 12-inch single by Plaza Hotel, another stunty stream. This is a band I had no idea about, actually. It's a German duo. They really just did this one-off 12-inch. This is pretty, not exactly cheap for a 12-inch, but the 2 tracks are incredible. A little bit of a post-punk, German new wave kind of thing. Of course, what makes it, to me, is Jackie Liebezeit on drums, and Wolfgang Spillman's and Tabu Gasang. Those are the two. It's called. I thought Holger Shukai was on. No, I think it's Jackie Liebezeit, but you can hear Jackie's drumming as soon as you play this thing, and it's great. It's pretty. It's got a great hook, at least to the A side. Both sides are great. Great. It's on the Delphin label. Kind of a little bit congested this morning. But Plaza Hotel, there's not that much to really talk about, really. It's from 1983. Like I said, it's a German release. Just a one-off 12-inch. They were in a few different post-punk groups. Just kind of, where it starts and ends for me, I think. Spellman's was part of DAF. I can't remember the exact name. But this record is just a great grooving track, a great one to throw into a DJ set if you're doing that. Yeah, I guess Holger Shukai is on this. According to my notes, he does appear, although I don't see him here. I could be wrong. I'll have to double check that, but it's certainly Jackie Liebezeit, and you can hear it in the drumming. Yeah, it's a really good funky. That's not funky. It's just it's really got an odd cyclical rhythm that, Liebezeit brings to it. And it's just self-titled Plaza Hotel. These are the two tracks here. And yeah, Au 33 Tour had this one. They had it there when I remember seeing this in the store. The Anthony Moore I didn't see. I think I saw it in advance on their Discogs or on their website, but this one I saw in the store and I was like, nah, I'm going to wait. And I decided that wasn't good enough, so... Plaza Hotel, 1983 on the Delphin label. Speaking of Stunty, I know he's played this, but this is one I had the reissue of, and I still have the reissue of. I'm selling it. It'll be sold this week, but pretty cheap record. I got this at Au 33 Tour. I talked about this one already. It's with the original inner sleeve cherry red, but Kevin Harrison, Inscrutably Obvious. First release as a cassette in 1980 with a different cover. This is his only actual record, I think. There's a 12-inch? Yeah, there's a 12-inch too. This is only LP, but it was called Earth 2 on cassette originally. From 1980, this is from 1981. And this is a great hodgepodge of a bunch of things. DIY, post-punk, dub, just that British sort of like art rock that's sort of mixed in with post-punk after that era. And a real healthy sense of minimalism, even like a Terry Riley sort of minimalism to this. A lot of analog synths, and at times they've got that minimal disco thing going on. Great late night listen. He was in, what's the other? Oh yeah, he was in the band called The Urge and Neo, other post-punk groups that were pretty minimally recorded. And this just hits that sweet spot for me of UK underground DIY, like all those tape cassette bands, basically. What was the other band he was in? Urban Ferments, I forget. But Kevin Harrison, Inscrutably Obvious. If anyone is still interested, let me know. I'm going to probably get rid of everything I have to cash in for WFMU this week, but I still do have the reissue of this. It'll be cheap too. So this was from Au 33 Tour, very good price. Really, really love that. I will find that other 12-inch that I know Stunty did show. Jazz records. Let's see. A couple of jazz records. As you know, I've been really trying to track down Charles Tyler records. Here's one I know everyone will know, and a lot of you have. Another Charles Tyler Ensemble. This I got through eBay. Buy It Now or Make Offer, I think it was. But we have Joe Friedman cello, Henry Grimes bass, Ronald Jackson drums, Charles Moffett vibes with alto by Tyler. I love Tyler's sort of approach to what he does with free jazz, which it can get difficult for sure, but he brings the orchestrated nature. He likes to use strings a lot, you know, that third stream idea. And this is ESP. This is the mono pressing. I think it's like the second mono. ESP is always a shit show and a minefield of trying to figure out what you have. But obviously a great label. And yeah, Henry Grimes on this is awesome. I do want to track down that Henry Grimes record on ESP. I know that Joe Analog Archive was selling that, but very free, but not quite insane. And vibes add a nice sort of different quality for this type of record, I think. You know, he's got the spirit of Albert Eiler, and having played with him, that's in here, but it's not to the same sort of blistering effect, you know. I just love Charles Tyler, and yeah, there's more for me to figure out and find. This is from 1966. First Ensemble release. Charles Tyler. Alright, here's one I got from the Angry Mom wall. Since I'm not there that much these days, a lot of times I don't see everything before it goes out. I used to see like everything before it goes out. Now I'm fine with it. A lot of times I just didn't know certain things were there, and this one was sitting there on the wall. No one else seemed to care too much about it except for me. Frank Foster, Silent Minority, and the Loud Minority. And when I remember Kieran showing this, and you know, I've been trying to find for on the mainstream label, but this one I played when I was there to run a show. I forgot what show it was. I played in between bands, and I was like, no, this is coming home with me. And I was able to get it for about $30, so it was a really good deal. Yeah, originally from Cincinnati. This is from 1972, and this is like one of his one or two real spiritual efforts. Yeah, the title track is a blazer. It has the vocalist. Well, I'll tell you who's on this. It's sort of laid out in a weird way here. Dee Dee Bridgewater. I'm trying to find the vocalist. I don't see her. Pratt. Someone will tell me. Someone will remember. You do have Omar Clay on drums. Jan Hammer, Harold Mayburn, Gene Perla, Elvin Jones is on this, right? Air to Maria. I mentioned Dee Dee Bridgewater's vocalist. Stanley Clark is on this. Earl Dunbar, Dick Griffin, Marvin Peterson, Charles McGee, Cecil Bridgewater, Kenny Rogers, the other Kenny, and Frank. And yeah. No, it's Richard Pratt is the drummer. Anyway, the vocalist is some, I don't remember who it was, but she sort of starts with the Silent Loud Minority, and it's a blazer. It's kick-ass. You know, Omar Clay, of course, was in Boom. What a great lineup. He really brought a ton of people in this, and it's really a black conscious, you know, civil rights reaction is what we're getting here. 1972. Saxon flautist, Frank Foster. The whole thing's great. The whole thing's really great and just hits pretty hard. Yeah, really cool character, really interesting character. He worked with Count Basie early on, and from I think most of the mid-70s he was a teacher, first in New York City and then in Buffalo, University of Buffalo, not far from me. I don't know much about any of his other records, but this is one that I sort of had on my radar, probably because of Kieran. And I was happy to see it turn up there at Ambient on the mainstream label, which does have some interesting jazz records on it.
The loud minority as opposed to you know who.
the next record we'll talk about, and I'm going to put it on since the first side of our Tokatlian ended, is this Tuesday, Wednesday, a soundtrack, Canadian guitarist Mark Carmody. I'm going to put this on right now. One only pressing on DTK Records. Let's check that out. All right, costume change, and here I am, dressed. Anyway, continuing on, we're playing the Mark Carmody. This is the Cabal label from the Tokatlian record, the Argentinian jazz. Yes, this is Mark Carmody from 1987, Tuesday, Wednesday. Guitarist in a band called Angered Rex that was compiled on the Feeding Tube label, but he did this in 87. For a film I have no idea about called Tuesday, Wednesday. And this Chris Cole, good old Chris Cole, recommended this to me a while back. It's a bizarre one. We're going to listen to this as we talk. But a Canadian guitarist, as I mentioned, in that Angered Rex, a sort of post-punk group from the 80s. And yeah, from New Brunswick. And it does kind of feel like a soundtrack, but also just feels like somebody trying different themes and different sort of genres, sort of genre hopping. All of the instrumental voices employed in the orchestration of this work are the voices of the electric guitar. So there you go. This excludes the use of any guitar-triggered synthesizing devices. I like how in the 80s, and even in the 70s, late 70s, when synthesizers were becoming so prevalent, people who weren't using them, were not using them, really wanted everyone to know, hey, these aren't synths, okay? Just so you know, I'm not aping sounds or synthesizing stuff. I'm actually playing the stuff. Now everyone's like, hey, I am using synths. It's amazing, isn't it? Look at this vintage synth. Anyway, yeah, on DTK Records. This was a great eBay score for about $25. It ended up being. It does sell on Discogs for more, or at least people are asking for more. So, but would not have known about this without the man, the myth, Chris Cole. So great one there. Here's one I've had since probably the spring. Another Nuno Canavarro record. This is the original pressing from '91 on Unao Lisboa with Carlos Maria or Trindade. And this is a different affair than the Plucuba, which is Canavarro's sort of music installation, you might call it. This is the inner sleeve that it came with. There's dead stock copies out there of this. I think the price sort of fluctuates. You can kind of find them. It may not be available right now, but traditionally they have been out there. So this was a dead stock copy, sealed when I got it, for the right price. But it's kind of a little different for sure. It's almost like an ambient pop, early 90s, a bit like a Antenna, you might say, but Portuguese. There's the influence of Japanese music, Slavic pop, Brazilian music, fourth world for sure. Got a lot of marimba and vibes, and yeah, really warm grooves to it. It's definitely more on the pop side of things, nothing like Plucuba, but lots of synthesizers, organ, and I ultimately quite like it. On the surface, I was not sure about it, but my interest in Nuno Canavarro sort of precipitated it. But it is Mr. Wollogallu, if I haven't said. There are reissues of this as well, like I said, from 1991. It sort of has an oddball charm to it, you could say. And I guess they were using a lot of tape cut up and tape technique for this record. And they do like the image, cover image here. I wonder if Mr. Fred Big Star has this record. Maybe he's talked about it, but I could see him liking this one quite a bit. So Portuguese pressing, 1991, Mr. Wollogallu, Nuno Canavarro, Carlos Maria Trindade. Here's a real oddity and not in the Acid Archives. So we're sort of going to get into some psychedelic stuff. And this is one that I think I've just been vaguely aware of, but both Alex Diamond Marimba and the aforementioned Chris Cole was saying I would like this. And I was able to get this from another eBay auction, thanks to those guys, just making it available, or making it known. But this is Jeritree, otherwise known as Jerianne Hilderley from 1978. A really sort of coming out of the women's folk movement, the 70s. You see all these, women-centric film in the mid-70s, women, all produced by women, mostly folk music, mostly not all that interesting, really. There's a few interesting records mixed in there, but a private press, and she's making folk music, but doing it with a very interesting voice, you could say. House of Many Colors. Is she from Maine? This label is technically Maine, where it's distributed by Wise Women Enterprises. Here's the label. This is certainly not for everyone, and really should be in the Acid Archives. If it is, and maybe it's in the second edition, and I have the first edition still. Maybe it's in the second, and I just didn't know. But, let's see. She did contribute some stuff to the folk psych comp, A Few Loving Women, which is one of those kind of compilations or records I talked about. She calls her music ritual or dramatic music, and a healing creative force. And you can see that. It's just, if you can't get into what she's doing vocally, you probably won't like this, but you do get, again, more marimba, cello, Afghan drums, steel drums, wood flutes, and her voice. So it feels like a free-flowing consciousness, sort of coming up with sort of little improvised passages, and her voice sort of leading it. Here she is recording there. And it is distributed by Kay Gardner's. That's her thing. House of Many Wise Women Enterprises. Kay Gardner's little distribution thing there. Feels like it could be at home on Tacoma Records, probably. And the web, you can find the website for this, where they're talking about how much these records are worth, and they talk about $300, and it's not. It's nowhere near that. I got this for I think it was $50 or $60. Worth it to me based on what it is. Apparently it's going to get reissued. I haven't seen it yet, but again, this is from 1978. The sample on this one will really help. I think people need to hear this. House of Many Colors by Jeritree.
When you sing with me, shadows turn to sunlight in your face. Shadows turning.
All right, getting into the psych stuff I talked about. Here's one I told. I ended up selling it during the WFMU fair. We went out to a few record stores after. I ended up trading this record in because the value was so high. So everyone knows this record really well, and I'm going to link to Jonas's Acid Archives entry on this. But I said I sort of regretted trading this record in for credit at what's the name of the record store? It's just slipping my mind all of a sudden. The little small one in the East Village. Went with Brandon, and just me and Brandon ended up there. Alex didn't make it, but Ergo Records. I ended up trading my copy in, which was much nicer than this, but here it is back again, JK & Co. So I'm going to refer you right to Jonas's video. I think I've talked about this record at some point, and he does a great story and history of this for the Acid Archives entry. It's essentially members of Mother Truckers, Yellow Duck, and Chilliwack backing up a young, 16-year-old, 15-year-old JK. Also, Craig McCaw plays guitar on this, who does some of that symphonic sort of planetary records, which I have one of. Anyway, I ended up with this for $1, and it's not quite as nice and clean as the one I had, but it is still nice, pretty nice shape, the record particularly. The sleeve isn't quite as nice as what I had, but yeah, there was a guy selling records, and he advertised on Facebook Marketplace, and my friend sent to me, and he's like, this guy's a real nut. Like, he tried to come into the record store and sell stuff, and he was being unreasonable, and we ultimately didn't buy his stuff, but he didn't bring this. He went home to do an estate sale and put out more records, and my friend, who was like, hey, this was the guy that was in, check out his Facebook Marketplace ad. And I'm looking through it, and he flips through some records, and I'm like, hey, did you see what was there? And my friend didn't know what it was, and he flipped past this, and I'm like, I gotta go out to this thing, but I couldn't. So my friend who showed it to me, he's like, I'm actually planning on maybe going to that. I'll grab that for you if I see it. And to make a long story short, he was able to grab it for $1, or maybe it was $2. Anyway, I really thank you, my friend. And this is how I wanted to get it back. I was like, if I'm going to get it back, I don't want to really pay for it. So, a really nice soft psych album and some great moments. Just not 100% through and through a classic, but I do like it, and so I'm happy to have it back. Again, link to Jonas's video below if you don't know that record. It's become more and more desirable. Alright, here's one that I'm just absolutely in love with, also based on an Acid Archives video. Was familiar with this, seen it in Anger Mom, just didn't check it. I thought it was more prog, but this is Space Opera, and I showed this from my Montreal sort of haul. And it's essentially the members of Chaucer, Whistler, Chariot, and Greenhill. And while it gets often associated as a Canadian band, it's actually Americans from Texas, I believe it was, who moved up to Canada to record it. So this is the Canadian original with the Columbia 360. Got this at Au 33 Tour when we were there in August, Montreal. And it is awesome. Crazy Jimmy, I will link to his video. He did a whole feature on this for the Acid Archives, which it is, of course, listed. But it's 3 of the 4 members of that uni album, Detroit, Whistler, Chaucer, Greenhill. I can't remember remembering all the names. Maybe that's not in the right order. But this has just got a really interesting feel to it. It does have an early prog sound, but really more sort of post-psychedelic. I love the guitar players in this. Really interesting guitar playing. 3 of the 4 people are playing guitar on this, actually, including flute. There's some flute, harmonica, keyboards. I love some of the stuff feels ahead of its time. It feels like stuff you'd see in indie rock later on. But there's also a Dutch, UK, and Australian pressing of this. It's gotten fairly easy to find, not terribly expensive. I like having this Canadian original with the original Columbia labels. Otherwise, it's on Epic. And yeah, from Fort Worth, Texas, but recorded in Canada. Just a really great mix of classic psych, a little early prog, even some rural rock, and just some really cool ideas. I love where this goes. So great video from Crazy Jimmy. I'll also link to below, really detailing more of it. Another Canadian one. In fact, these next few are French Canadian. Also from these next 2 from my Montreal diggy dig. This is Péloquin, Sauvageau. Another, I guess you'd call this art rock again, a little similar to the Areski records. But this is from 1972 on Polydor. Laissez-nous vous embrasser ou vous avez mal. So leave us to embrace, or we are bad, or I don't know the translation off the top of my head, or you are bad, or you are without goodness. I didn't look that up, but that's a loose translation. Anyway, this is a band. It's their only record. It's French-Canadian. I believe it's only pressed in Quebec, but Théâtre du Bonhomme Sateur, the theater of 7-hour good men. I'm translating that directly. Come on, you French speakers, correct me. I'm leaving myself open for embarrassment and correction. But, yeah, 1972 avant-prog art rock. They are from Montreal, so you really find it there. A good example of the stuff you want to find when you go there. But very unique, very much a difficult listen at times, but interesting turns, electronic soundscapes, spoken word, music concrete, experimental, really interesting. Reminds me a little bit of Academy in Peril, John Cale, a bit along those lines, but I don't believe there's any other pressings of this. Polydor 1972. I'll show you the label one more time, and there you have it. I didn't really talk enough about these when I bought them, so I wanted to sort of highlight them again.
Pour toi, tu connais pas ça, mais elle dit ça sent drôle. Oh, c'est pas grave. Ils dit, ils en mettront pas d'autres, ils vont demander la permission d'en mettre rien qu'un. Oh, sinon, mes deux, c'est pas grave.
The last one from that, not the last one, but the last one in this video from the Montreal dig, the concrete and synthesizer music by Bengt Hambraeus on the McGill University, of course, the big university in Montreal imprint. Again, the kind of thing that you can find there, maybe not easy to find elsewhere. Certainly an academic and sort of, going from that sort of route. Let's see. Yes, Swedish actually, but a musicologist, organist, and composer, professor of music and theory at McGill at this time. Is there an insert to this? He does have some records on Caprice, which I really would like to check out since he is Swedish. That makes sense. These are the original mail order cards. Golden Crest Records. This doesn't make sense. This is Long Island. But this one is a postcard for a Canadian related thing, but this is interesting. This is in here. Anyway, yeah, this is very much a concrete record. If you like that kind of thing, he's very good at it, in fact, if you ask me. But yeah, more, there's like the sounds of like what it sounds like airplanes taking off and like jet sounds, drone and noise. Definitely pretty, what looks like it would be a serene and sort of wonderful and quiet listen. It is not. It is not an ambient record. But it does have some subdued tones, but definitely gets chaotic too. And there he is, looking happy. Bengt Hambraeus. Concrete and synthesizer music. This is from 1976. And two more. This next one is another, a little along the same lines, but more of a private press synth record. And Lanza Permanent Records has a connection to this. He just talked about it. He did reissues of this, and he had original copies of this. I was able to find this on a website that still had stock copies of this, which Chris Cole also may have. This record came up somehow, and he may have sent me to the right place. He knows where to go for everything. Bill Vermette, Cathavisions, 1984, and Rainforest Productions. And it's a Chicago-based synthesist. I mean, Permanent Records used to be in Chicago, so I think that's the connection. But really nice cosmic minimalism on side one. Side two, he goes a bit more minimal synth with drum machines, and there's like guitar, and a lot of his stuff is on this own private imprint, Rainforest Productions. He was in a group called VCSR, which I guess Permanent Records was also involved in. And the Great Plastic Crime Wave did a sort of secret history of Chicago music on this, on Bill Vermette. Here's a great track on that, Mark Carmody. I really like this, if you can hear it. But yeah, interesting one. Really interesting one. I like that it has two different distinct sides. The second side being more minimal synthy, and the first side being like this cosmic ambient minimalism with a bit of sort of like 80s drone, if you know what I mean. No insert on that. I'll show you the basic label though. Very much a private press sort of white label there, and there you go. Interesting character. I'll have to look further into his music, but yeah, one of the better private press minimal composer synthy things that I've heard in some time. Record here. I had a little more records than I usually will do on these vinyl absorptions, but Dave just showed this. Ooh, baby! Not too long ago. I think he had the same pressing. This is an early, or I think a German repress from like a year later, but this is in that Jazz Meets World series, Drums and Folklore and Saba's record series, Jazz Meets the World. This is Stixland, from Stixland with Love, Drums and Folklore. Yeah, Dave just showed this. But I've had this one a while now this year, and listened to it a good 4 or 5 times. It's a percussion record, but on the second side you do get some jazz. I got it because you have Manny Neumeyer from Guru Guru, Daniel Humer, Pierre Favre, and the other guys I'm not as familiar with, Charlie Antolini and Alfred Seischer. Feel free to identify, but of course Manny Neumeyer, in addition to being part of Krautrock Legends Guru Guru, was a jazz drummer. But the other cool thing is you do get George Gruntz as pianist, and whereas Nathan Davis does turn up with Franco Ambrosetti and Jimmy Wood. That's on the second side. You get some of the sort of more jazz-centric stuff. This was a great deal from a Discog seller for $20. Great. Really happy to find that. Nice shape and everything. It's not the very first press, but this is like, what, the German, like I said, I think it's the German, either the German first press a year later or German second press. But I love this cover. I believe it's a different cover, I think. But really cool. Really cool. Let's see, what else do I have on this? Yeah. This is the second German press, it says. Second German press. Percussion pieces, first side, free jazz, second. George Gruntz, yeah, basically everything I said. You know, at first I thought, because some of the more percussion parts are not like the best examples of sort of percussion on record that I've heard, but good. And the second side, giving it that sort of more jazz feel to it, makes this one definitely worth it if you see it. Talk about records that we hopefully we'll see at WFMU for myself. I'll put that up hopefully this week before the festival or the fair. And this has been Vinyl Absorption. I'm going to end it there. I also want to thank everyone for participating and for the folks that were able to buy records from me for my little purge I did to fund WFMU. Really helped me. I'm in much better shape now. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for doing that. As I speak now, I'm packing up records today and tomorrow. Those will go out very soon. Tracking to come. Again, thanks so much. You know, pulled some records that I really did enjoy in my collection, but ultimately I feel good about getting those out to you. So thanks again, and more to come soon. Long-running John Fahey update I've been working on. I'm going to be doing that. And Robbie Basho. perhaps before I leave, but if not, it'll happen when I get back. But that's it. Thanks again, everybody. I'll see you.